Well, then there's another one too. Austin, Texas. Down in Austin, the police are feeling all excited and they're like, oh, everybody's anti-change now. Everybody's concerned about crime. So they put a referendum on the ballot, the police union down there, to increase the size of the police force, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you're buying into this line, that should have just won, going away. No, Austin, they organized, they campaigned hard. It was a tough race. They beat the proposal to increase the size of the police force by 68% to 32%.
Wow.
So if we're looking around the country, if we're saying, okay, let's take it all in, let's try and get a picture. We say, yeah, Minneapolis didn't quite make it. But boy, down in Austin, they overwhelmingly reject increasing the size of the police department because they think that money ought to be spent on human needs, human services, etc. I'll give you one last example and then stop pontificating. But they say, oh, well, the mayoral races, there you go. People have rejected the left. They've rejected progressives. India Walton, she got beat up in Buffalo, New York. Progressive, young, Black candidate who had won her own nomination. Her own party lets her down. The Democratic governor doesn't back her. She gets beat. So that's it. Nobody likes progressives. And then New York City, they elect Eric Adams, and he's centrist and stuff like that. So nobody likes progressives. So it's all over. Oh, I guess we forgot to cover Boston, where Michelle Wu, young, brilliant woman, first woman mayor of Boston, first Asian American mayor of Boston, first person of color to be elected mayor of Boston, runs on reforming policing in a city where the cops are kind of tough.
Yeah.
And announces at her victory party, where she wins overwhelmingly, that Boston is now a Green New Deal city.
Yes.
So I guess my point on this is not to be rose-colored glasses or naive. It was a bad election for Democrats. It wasn't great. They didn't win all over. They didn't have what they had in 2018 or something like that. But if you step away and you look at it realistically, what you realize is that it was a classic mixed election with a lot of distinct results, and some of them actually kind of good for progressives.
Thank you for that. It's so important to have that perspective and understanding and look at local elections. And yes, and again, also the first Muslim American woman elected to the New York City council. Can
I throw two more in for you?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just fun. I mean, I apologize for going on.
No, they make me feel better. I like it.
That's what I do for a living. And so, Eric Adams gets elected mayor of New York, and everybody's like, oh, wow, the centrist, the guy who is kind of not as tough on police reform, not a very kind of corporate guy, stuff like that. So that's over. New York City is now, it's Fargo East, right? It's a conservative town now, except that Jumaane Williams, who's the public advocate in New York, also running citywide, gets reelected with a larger percentage of the vote than Eric Adams. And Jumaane Williams is a total progressive member of DSA, a lefty. And you think, okay, well, that's one off. Okay. No. Brad Lander, who's running for comptroller, the big financial office in New York City, also a citywide race. He wins with an even bigger percentage than Eric Adams or Jumaane Williams on a campaign that's economic and social and racial justice, save the planet, use the finances of the city to invest in ethical things, and create a public bank to take on Wall Street.
Again, it is as if the media is a little myopic and biased. They are. And I think that's the other thing that we have to remember as progressives and people who want to see these kinds of wins are that there is so much investment in keeping us feeling marginalized and more so. And so I kind of, and it moves into what we're going to talk about in terms of the Build Back Better Act and such. But it is to even have a squad is huge, right? Yes. And they are growing. To even have the Congressional Progressive Caucus attempt to flex. I have some critiques of how they might have let the struggle go in terms of these negotiations, but they were not even a body or a force to be reckoned with. And now they are. So it's there is so much invested in our own cynicism. Everyone in the media, they don't want to cover your race. They don't want to cover these wins. Also because they kind of are okay just having it be a palace intrigue kind of elitist dog and pony show.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're cynical and you don't, then that's great. Then oh my God, stay home. Don't vote. Don't get involved. And I'm not saying that that's on pundits. I'm not saying that's on like any particular person, but that is the way the media apparatus, the mainstream media apparatus in this country works. And of course it's based on who funds them.
Well, it's also that they seem to see the notion of responsible journalism as policing the process.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get too excited, right? Don't actually, like try to change things. Like don't think that democracy might actually matter and you could see a problem and fix it, right? No. That's crazy talk. What you want to do is just kind of elect somebody who's maybe a little different this time, and then we'll elect somebody who's a little different the next time. But you don't want people to start getting excited about democracy, and we have turnouts like they have same level as in Germany or someplace like that.
And also it's also if it bleeds, it leads type thing, right? And so there's more drama if it's like, oh, they're failing and it's terrible and everyone's fighting and they're like, yes. I mean, I feel like the media does, as much as I want them to give me a job.
You're blowing it here.
Goddamn. I mean, nothing. I'll leave all this.
I'll
behind.
make sure she changes every opinion if you just give her a show.
Give me
the tape.
Exactly.
But I am so ready to just have her sell out, please.
Sellouts are look, and believe me, in the media, the notion of selling out is certainly an appealing thing. But
for sure.
But can I give you one? I'll give you one last feel good thing, and then we talk about the nightmare that is Biff and BBB. But one last feel good thing. Tuesday was a total rejection of progressivism. It was a total. I mean, the media will tell you everybody's done with progressive ideas. We had several months of actually considering doing good stuff. Now we can never do it again. And the proof of that is, of course, that progressive lost. Nobody likes progressives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Except here's one subtlety between Virginia and New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Sure, Democrats had a tough Tuesday. We understand that. We respect that reality. Okay, well. In Virginia, Terry McAuliffe ran a very kind of standard issue Democratic campaign, and he lost. In New Jersey, Phil Murphy, who's not some big lefty, but he had a whole campaign oriented toward reaching out to progressives, reaching out to communities of color, reaching out to young people. And as the capper for his outreach to young people, at the close of the campaign, he brought in Bernie Sanders to rally university students to turn out for the election. Now, if you were to actually do something called, I don't know, journalism, right? You might look at that and say, wow, here's an interesting subtlety. The guy who actually tried to get progressive votes, tried to mobilize people in the way that we talk about, he won. And the guy whose previous career was Democratic fundraiser, right? Corporate fundraiser, he lost
for the Carlyle Group.
Well, the Carlyle Group guy won in Virginia.
Yes, but the Carlyle Group guy won, but Terry McAuliffe was apparently also invested in the Carlyle Group or was working with them.
But here's the subtlety of this too. If we're going to keep on this thing just for 1 second more, how hard is it to beat the CEO of the Carlyle Group?
Right?
They specialize in buying out companies and putting people out of work. It ought to, on balance, you ought to be able to build a campaign against that guy.
It's such a clear narrative. I don't know how you miss on that narrative
because he was also compromised and implicated in the same group, in the Carlyle Group, and he was.
Then why not nominate a random person off the street?
Yeah, literally get anyone.
Get anyone else.
Find a guy. Find anyone.
Hey, you got Carlyle Group ties?
No, what? Cool. Come on,
come on. Someone else. Because I know this is going to blow both of your minds because you're kind of new at this thing. But some politicians are cynical. Right?
I don't believe it.
Even if you've got a tie to the Carlyle Group, you might still run against it. And if you're a Democrat and you're running in this cycle, I would still say if I'm running against the CEO of the Carlyle Group, no matter what awful stuff I have in my background, I would think I could beat him.
Yeah. Exactly. No, 100%. Because how are you going to, if you get checked on it, I mean, first of all, I'm sure New York Times and Maureen Dowd will check him on it. But like, you know, no one's gonna, you can't, from the right, you can't check him on that without also implicating yourself. So it's a bizarre.
And also the sweater vests.
Yeah.
You know,
the sweater vest alone should have tanked it.
I'm telling you. This is, I mean, it's like you're sort of starting to look at this. You're thinking, well, Virginia, Biden won it by like 5 gazillion votes, and you know it's voted Democratic for quite a while. Like how hard would it be to just say, yeah, I don't think our governor should be the CEO of some corporate buyout company?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Do it.